Hey, and welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fiends podcast, or I should say, welcome back, Stevie, because I have been a complete doofus and have accidentally missed again for the second time. And I've never missed an episode, and I missed 2 in 1 month. And
like the 2 back to back, the last one of the year and the first one of the year.
Yeah, so it's starting off great, but I will say that I have been able to organize things in my life a lot better, and I even have a planner for the first time, which is brand new for me. But Lisa is super excited that I took that initiative and I actually used the damn thing. So I'm doing a lot better and was actually ready for this podcast. So super excited. And I'm here with my co-host, as usual, Andy Peliquin, and we are honored to have our guest, Josh Hayes, today, a fellow sci-fi author.
He's actually our first sci-fi guest that we're ever going to have on.
You're breaking our cherry.
No pressure. Yeah, I'm excited about that. Yeah, no pressure. I'm like shaking in my chair. I'm nervous.
We've got Scott coming on in 2 weeks. So
nice.
If you beef it, he'll have a chance to make Keystroke look good.
Scott always does a good job of like cleaning up my messes.
Oh, well, awesome, man. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Josh Hayes. I'm a sci-fi and I'm going to be a fantasy writer this year. I'm writing a fantasy book, but right now I predominantly do just mill sci-fi and space opera too. Right now the series that I'm writing is called the Valor Trilogy, and it's a very heavy military sci-fi. The second book is out. I'm in the middle of writing the third book. I've been doing it since I've been writing my whole life, but pretty heavy into about 2016 is when I first started and was able to go full time last year. And I love doing it, man. It's great.
And you're able to go full time with your sci-fi novels?
So yeah, I've got
he's got a count. He's a good author.
I've got 7 out right now, 7 novels out right now. 4 of those are co-written with Richard Fox, who wrote the Ember War series, and they're actually in the Ember War universe. One of them is in the Galaxy's Edge universe by Nick Cole and Jason Onspach, Strikers War.
Nice.
That was a standalone novel I wrote for them a couple years ago now, but it got published last year. And then Echoes of Valor and Edge of Valor are mine, my first solo mill sci-fi projects. And then I've got, I don't know, like 12 short stories, something like that.
Nice.
Awesome, man. Sounds like you've been really busy.
Yeah, last year was super busy. Last year I did about roughly about 700,000 words, which is not a lot for a lot of people, but I'm starting off really slow this year, so I need to pick it up. As I did a ghostwriting project last year too, so I wrote like 90,000 words on a project that won't have my name on it, and then I also wrote 70,000 words on a novel that I didn't finish. It was for basically it was for another co-write, and I couldn't. There was some stuff that happened and I couldn't finish the series, and so he bought the first novel from me, and so that was another 70,000 words that I'm not publishing and he's doing whatever with, so it's no big deal. But so yeah, good times.
Awesome. So he bought it from you, the 70,000.
Yeah, so like it was gonna be like a 6-book series that I was gonna write in his universe, and I got almost done with the first draft, and I had it all planned out, but I got almost done with the first draft, and we lost our babysitting daycare person, and so I went from having 4, potentially 5 days a week of all day writing to having only 2, and we were going to publish these books every 30 days, which meant I had to write 65 to 70,000 words in 30 days, which would have been fine had I had all the daycare. But then when I lost the daycare, I was like, that's going to be an issue. And so he bought the first book from me for just a flat rate, and he's going to work on it and do whatever with it. But
that's cool.
Awesome. And we know you're a very busy person because you're also the host of the Keystone Medium. Now you got me all confused about it.
Yeah. Keystroke Medium is my company. We started off with one show. We actually do We have 3 consistent running shows right now. We have live, which is on Mondays, 8 p.m. Central. We have the Writer's Journey on Thursdays at 8 p.m. Central. We also have Coffee and Concepts, which is Walt Robillard, and he does some short 15-minute, 20-minute live videos in the morning where he talks about coffee and a particular topic. And then Joshua Gayu has just recently joined the team, and he will be doing non-live videos with people that just talk about stories. So like screenwriters, visual arts people, like a whole bunch of different people that aren't necessarily book writers. And those will be on our channel as well here starting in the next month or so.
That's awesome, man. That sounds great, man. I just it sounds like you're balancing a lot, but doing pretty well, huh?
It's going really well. It's been, like I said, it's kind of been a little bit of an adjustment without having the daycare, so I've had to juggle some different things. But
you have one kid?
Actually I have 4.
Oh, okay.
I have 2 that live with me all the time, and then I have 2 that live with their mom.
Okay.
The older 2 live with their mom. But yeah, it's going really well. Keystroke's doing really good. We're set to hit 1,000 subscribers this year on YouTube. And then I think we'll hit 3,000 or 4,000 on our audio feed this year too. So it's been really good.
Very nice. Well, we're excited. I need to come on Keystroke. Andy, have you been on Keystroke?
I have. This is why Josh is the first sci-fi guest of the year. I told him before, if you ever write fantasy, we'll get you on. But now that we're opening up to sci-fi, I figured it was time.
Yes, and I'm doing a fantasy this year. Yeah.
Good. Then when you do fantasy, you can come on and talk fantasy.
Yes. I'll talk fantasy all day long. Brandon Sanderson is my favorite author, so I talk all day long about it.
I see you shared his stuff on your YouTube channel.
Yep.
I actually went through that whole course too when I first started.
I've done it several times.
I heard his latest semester, like his latest videos are going up for the 2020 program.
It's already up. The first one's already up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wait, what? So he's doing another one?
Yeah, he's got 2 full ones up there, and then his 2020 session is getting put up every week instead of waiting until the session is done. They're doing it every week. So he just put up the first introductory session yesterday or 2 days ago. And if you subscribe to his YouTube channel, you'll get the notification when they go up.
You know, I did some research on him. He's making millions.
Oh, God.
So the guy is doing well.
You know that I can't remember who the entertainment company is, but they've purchased his, like, the Cosmere rights. They've purchased all of them. So like Mistborn and Stormlight and all that stuff, they purchased all the rights. So I think Mistborn is going to get made first, but I can't imagine him selling those rights for a little amount of money.
Anybody who can break the internet, break Amazon, basically. Like when he launched Oathbringer,
yes,
he broke the internet like that. It was just insane.
I've actually got a collector's copy of Oathbringer. I'm dropping Game of Thrones stuff on the floor. So in his first run of Oathbringer, I'll see if I can get the camera to show it. It might not. It's book 3. I'll get past the introduction, but on the let's see if I got to manually focus. There we go. It says book 2.
Oh, typo.
And I actually had let me refocus here. I actually had his assistant's email, and I emailed his assistant. And I'm like, I'm sure you guys already know this, but he's like, yeah, we already know. We caught it before they could go to print.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know how many they made in that run. That was the first deal, but yeah.
That's a huge mistake to make at I guess you just start overlooking that stuff.
You know, what's crazy is that I have another indie author friend who did a fantasy book. And they misspelled the title on the inside jacket. It's up there. I won't get it, but the title was Circle of Rain, and on the inside cover page, it's spelled CICRLE, something like that. Like it's not spelled correct, and nobody caught it. And luckily on the cover page it was right, but on the inside he was so mad because he sent me a signed copy, and when I got it I started flipping through and I looked at the title page and I was like, that doesn't look right. Why doesn't that look right? And then I saw it and I sent him a Facebook message and I said, hey man, you're gonna kick yourself right in the butt. And he goes, he freaked out. He was
That's crazy. So Josh, what we do at the very beginning of the podcast is we talk about something cool that happened to us within 2 weeks, something recent, really a cool update. And I should have warned you.
No, you're good.
Andy, do you have anything?
Things on the fly?
All right.
I do actually. If
go for it.
Don't want to go first. All right. So I have officially begun work on the 4th book of the Cerberus series. And this week so far I've managed to get down 24,000 words, which is almost a third of the way into the book.
Nice.
And so far there is, maybe 500 to 1,000 words worth of cleaning up that needs to happen before the book is ready for editing. So like by the end of this week, by tomorrow, essentially, I'll have cracked the 30,000 word mark, made good progress. I think chapter 9 or 10 of 24, 25. So I should be in good shape having this one done in the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks max.
Awesome, dude. That is freaking cool.
And it's been fun. It's been difficult because I've had to do a ton of research into spaceships, which, never having to do that before in writing fantasy. So it's like crafting a spaceship from the ground up. Obviously, there's a ton of research, like resources and stuff. But the truth is that there is no, I've yet to find internal schematics of a big spaceship, where it talks about like everything. I've found about 50 different web pages that has given me some ideas. Ooh, Josh has got something good to show me. Let's see this.
Oh yeah.
So this is kind of dated, but I've had it for years. And when you mentioned it, I thought it was funny that you mentioned it. I've got the Star Trek: The Next Generation technical manual, and so it's got like everything you could want. Like it tells you how the computers are worked. It tells you somewhere it shows you like deck blueprints of like what's on the deck and where things are. I used that for like the first 2 years I wrote sci-fi.
All right. Well, I will now go find that. Thank you, Josh.
And there's actually a collector's thing where you can buy this and like the actual blueprints of every deck, and they're like in blue, like big form blueprint pages.
Wow.
What a great idea. Did you have that before you started writing?
Yeah, I've had this for, I don't even know when I bought it. Like it's moved with me, so I don't even know if it has a production date on it. This was in 91. I'm sure I bought it around that time.
Oh, wow.
It's old.
You look way too young for that, though.
Oh, I'm 38, man.
You're 38? Yeah,
Yep.
I would not have pegged you at 38.
I'm a huge Next Generation fan. That's my favorite Star Trek.
Is that the one I should start?
If you're going to watch Star Trek, it's like probably the first 2 seasons are extremely dated. Starting in, I think it's season 3, it gets really good.
I heard they're funny to watch, though.
They are funny to watch because the effects budget is just so small, and they like, so when they shake the ship, when the ship gets shot, what they do is everybody does this.
Yeah.
Like choreographed.
Yeah.
They just do that, and then they shake the camera, and then that's you're getting the starship getting shot. So like it's cheap, and the storytelling's kind of so, but once you get past into season 4, it gets really good.
How do they shake the ship though when you do have a good budget? Do they actually have something that shakes them?
Well, a lot of sets are set on gimbals. And so what they'll do is they'll shake the gimbal, and then people are actually responding to the gimbal of the set getting shaken.
That is really cool. Yeah, I had no idea it went that far.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So Josh, what's your cool thing?
So my cool thing, it's a little longer than 2 weeks, but I got picked up for an audio daily deal on audible.com.
Oh.
And my Edge of Valor, my first solo novel, hit number 3 on the entire store for like 2 days.
Whoa.
That is
very
amazing.
nice.
and I mean, it was awesome. It's still riding kind of high. I'm not exactly sure where it's at right now, but the only thing I don't know who is at number one. It must have been some like traditional release, but The Witcher was number two, and I couldn't get over The Witcher because Netflix had just released the series, and I was like, "Oh, I like the show, but I wanted to be number two. I wanted to be number one, but it was number really cool."
Three, though, that's fantastic.
We did like so many sales, and the only downside is that because people that wouldn't necessarily get the book got it and listened to it and didn't like it, and so we got some bad reviews out of the deal, which I expected, and we dropped on our average a little bit, which I also expected. But it was still cool to see it climb up the rankings, and I was number one in Mill Sci-Fi for like a week. It was great.
So how did you have to contact them, or they contacted you?
We didn't know it was happening until the morning of.
They just took it and they're like, here you go.
Absolutely no idea. Had we known, we probably would have been able to schedule a little bit more promo and probably would have hit number one.
Yeah.
But even the publisher didn't know. Like they sent me a message and were like, "Hey, do you want to know something cool?" And I was like, "Yeah, I like cool things." And they're like, "You're the daily deal on Audible today." And I'm like, "That's fantastic." And then we just watched it rise. It was kind of a crazy week.
That's really cool, man. That's some amazing news. That's like, holy crap, dude.
It's like getting a book bub but not having to pay for it.
Honestly, when you first said it, I was thinking that BookBub had some new thing with Audible, so you paid for it.
No.
That's really cool.
Yep. It's really cool that the sales kind of translated over to book two, because we had just launched book two, or we were getting ready to launch book two, and so we saw book two hit it. Oh yeah, it couldn't have been better.
Perfect timing.
Yeah,
I love when that stuff happens. Well, cool, man. Now my news looks like just like dog crap, which is actually my news today. I came home and Spartacus, my white husky, has sporadic and spontaneous diarrhea. I'm talking hot, liquid, no chunk poop.
Oh, that's horrible.
And he's done it 3 times in the apartment, and the carpet is like those long threads of carpet, and it just seeks in there. And when I'm cleaning it, I feel like I'm just massaging the freaking ground.
Right.
And I'm gagging. I can't do it. I'm gagging.
I thought you said we were supposed to have good news.
This is good news.
Oh yeah, I thought I had a silver lining tap, but there is no silver lining. Okay, the good news is I don't have to deal with it for very long, because we're moving into a larger and much more luxurious apartment.
Nice.
So I'm super excited for. We thought we weren't going to get it because I broke a lease stupidly when I was 18, and no, that's not possible. You don't make mistakes when you're 18. So I had to fix that. So that was $3,500. Went to the debt collectors after negotiating. Wow. Yeah, just kept pursuing this place, and finally they gave in because I guess I just bothered them too much. That and the credit card companies. I kept calling, like, "Hey, I paid this shit. Take it off."
Yeah,
bothering people.
Well, they're the worst. They're the worst. They're like, "You're gonna pay us today or else," and then you pay them, and you're like, "Can you fix my credit?" Nah, we'll do it when we're good.
Exactly.
When we're ready, we'll take care of it.
Well, I think they got tired of me, so because I had the lady's personal number.
Nice.
Did you get it done today? So that's my good news. And as a fireplace switch, I know it's silly, but I'm super excited for that.
Oh, fireplaces are cool.
Yeah, I have a lightsaber with a little stand that I'm gonna put on it. Super. And also going to have my own office, which is going to be tight.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's really what I'm excited for.
I have my own office, but I want a window. Like, that's my thing. Like, I would really like a window. My wife gets the other office with the window over there, and I'm in the storm cellar, basically.
You know, it's like in like a lawyer's office. You know, whoever brings in the most gets the corner office.
That's right.
You got to get those earnings up, Josh.
That's right. I'm working on it, man.
Is your wife an author as well?
No, she doesn't even read my stuff. She's a spinal cord stimulator medical services rep. So she
the direct opposite.
Yeah, she cells, and then she doesn't help the surgeon, but she is in surgery with the surgeon when they implant the device, and then she works with the patients, setting up the device and running it and that kind of thing. So she's like one of two reps in the region, in the state, that do it here in Wichita and in Salina. So she's pretty busy most of the time. As a matter of fact, she's in Vegas right now at a conference. And actually
Conference.
at a conference. Yeah.
Yeah.
Every time I go to Vegas for 20 books, I'm like, it's a legit conference.
It's a real conference.
Really.
Yeah. Well, that's cool, man. God, I can't believe it's like the opposites attract, huh? She's a scientist.
Well, she's not really a scientist. She's just the salesperson. But we actually met at the gym, and that's what kind of brought us together. She didn't know about any of my author geekiness until after we got married. I pulled out all the Star Wars stuff, and she was like, "What the hell is this bullshit that's around? You can't be this nerd guy." And I'm like, "Oh, I am.
Let's talk the final episode of Star Wars.
I haven't seen it. A
lot of people hated it. It's
probably
sad.
Won't see it. I'm not excited for it at all. I was way more excited about The Mandalorian.
Yeah, The Mandalorian was excellent. I am like overly excited about Star Wars stuff, and I actually enjoyed The Witcher more. So
I like The Witcher. I'm not. I haven't really read any of the books, and I haven't played the game. And so when I watched it, like the first 4 episodes, I had no idea what was going on, and that threw me. So I think if I go back and rewatch it, it will probably be. I liked it. The dragon in episode whatever it was pissed me off.
Okay, I just didn't want to give anything away. You're not giving anything away.
No. Just the way the dragon looked.
Oh, the CGI bothered you.
Oh,
okay,
I hated it.
Yeah, it was a little weird.
Yeah.
If you're watching or listening to this, we'll let you decide what you think. But I really enjoyed it. I love The Mandalorian. I just I guess the reason why I like The Witcher so much more is because I felt like it was more punishing. You never knew who was going to die. And you would say, well, Stevie, why don't you watch Game of Thrones? And well, Game of Thrones to me was almost too much. Like I got to the Red Wedding and I stopped. I was like, I can't do it. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. You killed I can't say anything, but
Game of Thrones, like I loved Game of Thrones until the last season.
Was it really that bad? Everyone says it's horrible.
The last season utterly okay.
It had the best episode in my opinion, of the entire show.
What you said? 2? Episode 2?
The night before the battle. That was
2.
My favorite episode.
That was, out of all, even season 7 to season 8, that episode was the most character-centric driven episode ever, and it really said a lot for the characters. But somebody said this, and I can't remember if it was on TV or if I was watching a YouTube video or whatever, but basically they said that Game of Thrones, discounting the books, Game of Thrones, the series, fundamentally affected people's lives around the world until the last season came out. And when the last season came out, everybody is done with it. Like it no longer has staying power in the world because the season ruined it. Like completely just shit on the whole series. That
was a Reddit post, wasn't it?
I don't know. I heard it the last couple of days, and so I'm not sure if I read it, but
they said it changed. It was so powerful, it affected the lives of most everybody, especially in the US, for 10 years.
Yep.
And then in one season, or actually they said the final episode, it went south. It went negative.
No, it was the whole season.
It was the whole season. Okay. I don't remember saying it was either the last season or the one episode. But
it was basically the Battle of Winterfell. Once they did the Battle of Winterfell and they sacrificed intelligence for the sake of cinematics.
Right.
Everybody was just done with it.
It was a whole bunch of flip-flopping, right? Like they spent the whole show basically weighing death, right? And they weighed death significantly heavier than any other show in the history of television or even in books. Like death is real and it can happen to anyone. They made it so heavy. And then you get to the last season, and I'll say it, I don't care. It's been out for a while. They basically kill off an entire army and then bring them back in the last 2 episodes.
Yeah, exactly. And when the wall comes down at the end of season 7,
Yeah.
and then the characters who should definitely have died
Yeah.
didn't,
Yeah.
they sacrificed the impact of those deaths for the sake of the show, because there was the comic relief character, there was the one character who was fated to die somewhere else, and then the first episode was okay, the second episode was amazing, and then that third episode they just fucked everything up so badly.
So horrible.
Even like I had been studying military tactics because I was writing a military fantasy series at the time.
Right.
So immediately I knew this was wrong. Like the entire battle was just wrong.
Yeah.
And any general would have been court-martialed and executed and their entire family slaughtered for those tactics.
Yeah.
But it was cinematically gorgeous. There was those moments where they ride into the darkness and the flames were extinguished one by one. Spectacular. So much about it was all cinematography, and that's where the show failed. And then everything else that it had spent 7 seasons and almost a half doing was just undone by poor decisions that the writers and showrunners made.
I think it's a really good lesson for writers. We're done with spoilers now, so if you want to listen to school, sorry.
Thank you. Sorry.
I think it's a really good lesson for writers if you watch the show and you just, even if you don't like fantasy, just watch the show and watch all of it and get to the 8th season and watch the 8th season from a writer's point of view. And it's like basically a encyclopedia on what not to do with your characters and your story. Like if you can look at it and as a writer and say, these curves need to happen, but to make them happen, you have to make the character earn it. Because season 8 happened and everything that happened in season 8 was not earned at all from any of the characters. And even some of the characters that you were building up to do certain things, they didn't do the things you were building them up to. And it just completely destroyed everything. So anyway, that was my Game of Thrones rant.
Well,
but
real quick, why did they do this? Were they just ignorant?
So they were actually, the writers were set to do some Star Wars movies, I guess. And they needed to wrap up Game of Thrones to go and do the Star Wars movies. And so, because HBO and George were both saying, you guys can have all the freaking seasons you want. Like, if you want 10 seasons, you can have 10 seasons. And they're like, no, it's all right. We'll do 8 seasons, and we'll even cut it short. And we'll do a shorter season for the last season, and we can wrap everything up. It's not a big deal. And you could see, and then now they're not even doing the Star Wars thing. They got they dropped that because of creative differences or whatever. But
probably my biggest gripe with that last season was the way they treated Missandei.
Oh yeah, because they didn't give her shit.
Everything else, I didn't like it, but that character, after the whole evolution of the story, the way that they wrapped up her storyline, it was just like it was so wrong for me.
Yeah, no, I agree, 100%.
Well, awesome. Well, that was fun. Now I know a little bit more about it. So today's topic, we're doing the line drawn in the sand. And who came up with this idea?
Well, this was Josh's idea about basically a decision that you have to make to follow orders, which is great from a military or police or firefighter, any, in sort of a chain of command, follow orders or do what you know is right.
Yep.
Are you a police officer?
I'm retired.
But you were an officer.
Yep. I was on the police department for 10.5 years.
Oh.
I did regular patrol. I did community policing. I was on the bomb squad for 2.5 years. That's how I met Scott Moon. He's still an active officer, but I retired last year to do this full time.
That's awesome. And you were in the Air Force, right?
Did Air Force for 6 years, WPD for 10. Yep.
Wow. Yep. And so I guess I have to ask, was there ever a time in your life where you had to make a decision like that?
Not to that drastic extent. There were times where there were requests or operating procedures that came down when I was in the police department that we all on the ground level were like, no, we're not going to do that. That's dumb. that's ridiculous, and it doesn't do any good to do that, but never anything really to a life or death level. If that,
Yeah. You know, one thing that you always see in those cop shows is that, you know, there's protocol, right? There's a certain way that you approach, you know, let's say someone who's armed, right?
Right.
Armed and dangerous, the way you approach them. But then, you know, you always see like that one cop who's like, you know, he puts his gun away and approaches, you know, to talk the guy down, which is, you know, I'm sure that is sort of the way to approach it. But there's always like, you know, the characters who are there, they always look at him like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And it, you know, it often works out where their approach was the right one, and they, you know, they get the situation under control and stuff. Did you ever do something like that where you went against protocol based on sort of like your instincts?
So there's never I in 10 years I've never seen anyone approach an armed suspect without a gun.
Yeah.
Like that very rarely happens. The only time you'll see that is usually on a SWAT standoff where the person, the negotiator, is negotiating, and typically they're armed, but they don't have it, like it's just in a holster. But you have like 20 guns pointing at the guy.
Yeah.
Like it's never a situation where some cop is like, everybody put your guns down, I got this. I've never
like
seen
the
that
movies
happen. Yeah, it never
the
happens.
movies aren't
like
real.
Just like investigations where they're like, we got DNA evidence, and DNA evidence takes like months to get back. It never happens. The thing I love about my favorite is, do you guys ever watch CSI Miami back in the day?
Yeah.
And the guy always had like sunglasses on, or he would say something and put his sunglasses on, or he'd take his sunglasses off and say something all super dramatic. And I'm like, I can't do it. I couldn't do it. But I have not really broken protocol, but I've been in a couple fights where I had to do some stuff that is not technically sanctioned. Like for instance, we're not allowed to chokehold somebody. Like you can't put somebody in a sleeper hold to take them into custody. I was in a fight one time where a guy pulled basically a Bowie knife on me while we were running from a car stop, and fortunately I didn't have to shoot him, but he put the knife down before I did that. But we had to wrestle on the ground and fight for about 2.5 minutes, which if you've ever been in a real fight, 2.5 minutes is a really long time. And one of the residents that was living in the area, he came and helped me. But everybody that was coming to me was really far away, and I was out of steam because we just ran about a quarter mile full speed, and I almost shot the dude. And so when he threw the knife down and I tackled him, we fought for a while, and I had to roll him over, and then I put him in a chokehold and just held him because I couldn't do anything else. I was out of steam. And that, I mean, the chokehold aspect of it could be violating protocol, but I mean, I wasn't found guilty of anything, and they said, yeah, you did what you did, yet you had to do it. So, but never really had anything that serious where I've said, no, we're not going to do that way. We're going to have to do it this way because it's the right thing. But in the grander scheme of things, in my books, when I look at, I write mill sci-fi. So Edge of Valor is about a mission that goes wrong. And it's gone wrong at the beginning of the book. Before the book even starts, the mission has failed. And the point of the story is to figure out why it failed and how it failed. Because we already know that it failed. There are 3 survivors to the mission, and this investigator, Jackson Fisher, is basically interviewing those survivors. And when he interviews those survivors, they tell him their account of what happened. But not only do they say it, do they lie about certain things that we find out they lie, they also exaggerate and use their own biases, which actually happens in interviews where people will exaggerate things to make themselves sound better, or they'll see things. But like any cop or investigator would tell you, you can bring 2 people into a room that have witnessed the exact same incident. and bring them into the room, and they will tell you two very different stories because of how they perceive the incident happen. And so I use that a lot, and we have to figure out why these people are lying. And then when you get to the end of the book and we figure out why they're lying, then we delve into the orders and the right thing and what you're supposed to do. And I like to kind of play back and forth with the idea that there are good people and bad people on both sides of any argument. And
interesting.
So like in war, for instance, and this is what I base the theme of valor on, and I'll put it in really easy terms to understand: Russians and United States. If we ever went to war, there would be good and bad people on both sides, or they could be, right? Because there are people in Russia that don't like us, legitimately don't like us. There's people here that legitimately don't like them. Are either side wrong? No. We're both right in our personal belief that we don't like the other person. There could be bad actors on both sides, where there's bad actors on our side, where we're like wanting to go to war with them. So we push things in a certain direction to make it go that way. Like everybody says about George Bush in when we invaded Iraq. And there could be also bad actors on the Russian side that want us to go to war on that side. So I play with those two things and kind of put them in a spectrum where someone can read it and say, I understand and sympathize with both sides, and I let the reader decide ultimately who is right and who is wrong. And when it comes down to the actual military characters, I don't so much make them the determining factor on who is right and who is wrong, but they're fighting for the person right next to them. They don't really give a shit about the political aspect. They don't care about all the other stuff. All they care about is their team and what they're doing right that minute. And that's really how it happens in the military and in units like that, where you have a tight-knit unit of war fighters that are going out to do a mission, but they do not care one bit about the greater political aspirations of the people back home. All they care about is doing the mission and making sure that they come home alive. And so I like to play with all those things and kind of paint this like overarching picture of, war is bad, but sometimes you don't have like an Emperor Palpatine and a Luke Skywalker. It's not usually that cut and dry. It's very gray, kind of like Game of Thrones, in that you read or watch Game of Thrones and you don't really have a good guy or a bad guy.
A real grimdark approach to the military, essentially, right, because it's all shades of gray.
Yeah, exactly, 100%.
Very cool. Well, why don't we dive in and get a little taste of this with the opening scene?
No, I'm right. Just kidding.
So, Josh, you are the director. How many parts are there sort of in this beginning?
So we're talking about chapter 1, and chapter 1, there are, so Jackson Fisher is the main character of the book. He's an investigator. There is Tinsley Jones, who is kind of like my Han Solo of the book. He is ex-military. He's a civilian. He's not really a bad guy, but he's not like blue collar either. Like he'll skim the
dibs.
Yeah.
Are we chapter 1?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's a couple criminals that are in there too.
All right, Josh, do you want to be the narrator and the guy's thoughts, or do you want to do the voice?
I don't care. Hold on, I got to pull it up though. It doesn't matter to me. Whichever you want me to be, I will be.
Stevie, what do you prefer?
So it's crap.
It's Fisher's voice or the narrator?
I can do the narrator.
All right, so Josh, you're Fisher. It's great because you've been hearing him in your head for all these months, so you know what he sounds like.
That's right. Mark. By the way, Mark Veeder, if you guys are into audiobooks, he has done a phenomenal job on the narration. A lot of people, a lot of the comments I've said that they don't like his narration, but gosh, I think his narration, he just like the serious tone of the book, he like just nails it.
He does my Hero of Darkness series, and he is just so spot on.
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome. So,
All right.
I've got it pulled up now.
You got it, Stevie? You got it there?
yes, I do.
All right.
And I apologize for anything that I do not pronounce correctly. So, just
All
get
right.
ready. All right.
Here we go.
Chapter
blocks out.
1. Freeman Street, Entertainment District, New Tuscany, 2nd of April, 2607.
2 blocks out. I'm sure the spotters can see you now.
The voice in his Lynx cochlear implant told him.
You sure about this?
I'm sure.
Fisher gave the driver a sidelong glare, their eyes meeting in the rear view. The older man, sporting a salt and pepper beard and the galaxy's worst comb-over, held Fisher's gaze for a moment, then turned his attention back to the street. It definitely wasn't the first time he'd driven a fare to this part of town, and he obviously knew better than to ask questions, which suited Fisher just fine. Fisher lowered his voice so the driver wouldn't hear. New Tuscan cabbies were known to keep their clients' business confidential, but that didn't mean there wasn't one who wouldn't miss the chance to earn some favor with the local law.
Any sign of the cops?
None.
Tinsley Jones said.
Nothing on the network.
What about the encrypted?
Hey now, what do you take me for? Tapping into the response network is illegal. I could lose my ship. Hell, they might even lock me away on Talturgan for something like that.
Yeah. So how's it look?
It's clear. You think this traitorous bastard's going to show?
Fisher allowed the barest hint of a smile. His friend might not have been the most stand-up citizen, but for all his faults, the man was loyal and his patriotism was unparalleled.
No reason not to.
The cab's repulsor pads kicked up a cloud of dust as it pulled to a stop.
We are here.
The cabbie didn't bother looking back, and without another word, the car's door slid open, letting the hot New Tuscan air flood the passenger compartment. Even 2 hours after sunset, it was still hot. It was always hot.
Ah, but it's a dry heat.
Special Agent Jackson Fisher told himself, mimicking his wife's repetitious remarks about his current duty station. Dry or not, New Tuscany's spring was still unpleasant, but it beat being stationed on a warship for months at a time. He tapped the tip into the terminal on the seat back and climbed out of the cab. Undercarriage marker lights danced over Fisher's boots as the door slid silently shut behind him. Repulsors hummed and the cab lifted away. The Star Maker Tavern was half a block up, its glowing neon purple sign flickering amidst the myriad of other floating adverts. A muscle-bound bouncer stood near the entrance, keeping close tabs on the crowds as they passed. It'd be different for any trained observer to think the Star Maker was anything but a front for criminal activity.
Looks like they've changed the door guy.
Fisher muttered under his breath so only Jones could hear.
Maybe he's a sick grandmother he's got to take care of.
Music reverberated through the walls of reverberated through the walls of several bars along the street, creating an amalgamation of thumping bass rhythms and incomprehensible lyrics.
You know, you can still back out,
Jones said.
Not a chance.
All right. I'm just saying, you get caught in there. It's your ass, not mine. Have you considered the fact that Farringer might not even show?
He'll show.
Fisher said.
And by this time tomorrow, I'll be accepting Carter's apology.
That'll be the day.
Fisher weaved his way through the crowd, fighting the urge to check his six, scan the rooftops, peer down alleys. Situational awareness was something the Academy drilled into its recruits from day one, but constantly checking one's surroundings, especially while everyone else was completely oblivious to anything not in their personal bubble, was a sure way to get pegged by anyone actually paying attention. As if Jones had been able to read his mind, the part-time smuggler said,
Looking good. Still no activity on the scanners, and the spotters are just standing there. Doesn't look like they made you yet.
Oh, that's very reassuring. Thank you.
Hey, no problem, my friend. I'm here for you.
Fisher stopped in front of the barrel-chested doorman.
How's the scenery?
The bouncer grunted.
Depends on what kind of party you're after.
Fisher gave an exaggerated shrug.
A little of this, little of that.
20.
The bouncer held out a small handheld pad, his eyes scanning the streets. Fisher flicked his left wrist, activating his link. The semi-transparent orange-hued display rotated into position above his forearm. With the swipe of a finger, Fisher triggered his e-wallet and sent the payment over. The bouncer's link chirped, and he jerked his head toward the door.
Don't cause no trouble. I'm not in the mood for any shit tonight.
Thanks, pal.
Fisher gave the man a three-fingered salute as he passed. Inside was much like every other bar Fisher had ever visited. Dim, pale lights illuminated a central square bar where a few patrons sat in relative silence, nursing their choice drink. Others sat around tables eating food that Fisher was sure couldn't be healthy for human consumption. Gaming tables were set up near the back where a handful of patrons drank and yelled good-natured insults at each other. The booths arranged at the far ends of the space weren't well lit, partially concealed by extremely fake-looking plants. Fisher selected one with clear avenues to the exits and watched out of the corner of his eyes as the only waitress approached.
Can I get you?
She asked with little interest. She was well past her prime, wearing clothes that a woman 30 years her junior probably shouldn't have been wearing. Her blue hair was messy, as if it hadn't been washed in a few days, and her mascara was in need of a good touch-up. Jones spoke in his ear.
She hot? She sounds hot. I hear Tuscan girls get down like nobody's business.
Fisher ignored his friend.
Star Maker's Delight. Or Star Maker's Light Deluxe.
The waitress eyed him for a long moment, looking him up and down, considering. Fisher wondered if the phrase he'd been given had been changed, but finally, she scratched something on her datapad.
You want your deluxe with or without mixer?
With.
She nodded, making another mark.
I'll get it in. That's right, you will,
Jones said. When the waitress was out of earshot, Fisher said,
Damn it, Jonesy, you're killing me.
What? I was just curious. We should have wired you for picture, too.
There's not much to see. Trust me.
A few minutes later, the waitress brought Fisher's drink. Foam splashed onto the table as she set the clear glass down.
One deluxe.
Thanks.
Fisher scrutinized the pale yellow liquid, forcing himself not to grimace.
Those are on special tonight. 2 for 1.
She said, pointing at the glass, her link glowing around her arm.
You want to open a tab?
Sure.
So, what kind of mix are you looking for?
He rotated the glass. His stomach turned as the acrid smell reached his nostrils.
The long distance kind.
Interesting choice.
The waitress made a point of scrolling through her link.
I've got an appointment,
Fisher said. She looked up from the display, eyebrows raised.
Oh?
Mr. Pennington.
Pennington.
She repeated, continuing to scroll. A second later, she nodded.
I'll let him know you're here.
I appreciate it.
She left him alone with his drink, which he pushed across the table.
It's piss, isn't it?
Jones asked. Fisher cleared his throat.
Do people actually drink this stuff?
Hey, not everyone can be a classy bourbon guy like you.
If by classy you mean not wanting to catch a disease from whatever that shit is,
I've had worse, I promise you. You'll live.
I'll pass.
He watched the patrons in the back playing virtue darts. A group of heavy-set worker types were losing to a couple of older women, and judging by the number of empty glasses on their table, they weren't too happy about it. One slammed his half-empty glass down as his opponent threw yet another bullseye, sending a good portion of his deluxe splashing across the table and the floor. He snatched the darts from his partner's hand and took his position at the line. Wavering slightly as he adjusted his footing, he centered himself on the projection on the back wall. The multicolored board flickered slightly, surrounded by floating numbers and the names of the other players. He brought his shooting arm up, and his friends burst out laughing as he staggered to one side. He steadied himself against the table, cursed, then returned to the throwing line. He raised his hand into position as the virtual dart materialized between his fingers. The board flashed from red to green, and yellow letters appeared at the top, wishing him good luck.
Good thing those aren't real.
Fisher thought, disguising a half grin by rubbing his cheek. The man's first dart barely hit the board, a flash of orange that vanished just outside the boundary marker. He cursed again as his friend's laughter grew louder and brought up another dart. He took a moment to aim, then threw. The second one hit on the opposite side of the board, landing in the tin box. The board flashed green and yellow, and the number appeared above the dart. The group cheered. One slapped him on the shoulder, congratulating him as he brought up his last dart. The thrower shrugged his friend off, aimed, and threw.
Don't like the deluxe either, eh?
Fisher looked up as a tall man with close-cropped brown hair came around the side of his booth. His brown leather jacket hung open, and Fisher caught a glimpse of the small pistol tucked into the man's belt. Whether intentional or not, alarm bells sounded in the back of Fisher's mind. This was not the man he'd been expecting.
Smells like piss.
Tastes worse. You mind?
The man gestured to the bench across from Fisher.
No.
Fisher hesitated, then motioned for the man to sit. Balancing a half-empty drink in one hand, he extended the other.
Nice to finally meet you, Tom.
Fisher took the hand, bell still ringing in his mind.
Do you prefer Douglas or Doug?
The man pretending to be Douglas Farringer shrugged.
Neither way. My mother always used to call me Douglas when I got in trouble, but she's gone now, so I guess it doesn't really matter.
Doug, then.
The man nodded.
Didn't think you were going to show.
Oh, ironic,
Fisher thought.
considering the real Farringer didn't. Got to make a living somehow.
You okay, Fish?
Jones asked in his ear.
Don't we all?
Fake Farringer said, taking a sip.
Don't we all?
I have to be honest, though. I'm not sure I really like meeting in person like this.
Fisher said.
Too many opportunities for the wrong kind of people to listen in.
I'm on my way,
Jones said, picking up on Fisher's meaning. Fake Farringer set his glass down, then waved a hand through the air.
Fucking cops. They never come down here. Not even the hard up ones. Too many
He trailed off, looking up at the ceiling.
incidents.
Fisher sniffed.
Incidents, huh? You kind of sound like one.
Fake Farringer's face went still, his eyes locking onto Fisher's.
You saying I'm a cop?
Are you?
The man considered Fisher for several beats, as if he could peer through his eyes and into his soul. Finally, a half grin spread across Fake Farringer's face.
Are you?
Fisher gave the imposter a matching grin.
Can't ever be too sure, can you?
Fake Farringer snorted and shook his head.
No, you can't.
He finished off his drink in one long pull, then carefully set the empty glass on the table between them. He nodded to Fisher's drink.
You mind?
It's yours. 2 for 1 if you want another.
That's my kind of deal. Okay, I'm here.
Jones said.
Speaking of deals,
Fisher said, glancing around the bar, then finally back to Fake Farringer.
I'm sure you won't mind if I ask to see the specs before releasing the credits.
The imposter finished his sip, wiped his mouth with the back of one hand, and said,
Why would I mind?
BTRs aren't cheap. Some people kind of get touchy about stuff like that.
Pride.
Fake Farringer said, pulling out a lightweight data pad.
It's great most of the time. Lets people know you're not a pushover. Sometimes just gets in the way.
He tapped in a command, then held it out for Fisher to see. Half the display showed a wireframe diagram of a jump space beam transmission relay, its cylindrical body slowly rotating on its axis. The other half contained several lines of text identifying make and model and other technical information Fisher didn't understand. Fisher took a moment to read over the rest of the specs.
That's pretty impressive. Must have been a bitch liberating them.
Fake Farringer shrugged.
A bribe to a custom guy here, threaten a warehouse worker there. These things sell themselves.
Yeah, I guess they do.
So,
Fake Farringer said, slipping the pad back into the inside of his pocket of his jacket.
what's the URT need with military-grade relays? I mean, I know why they need them, but in your position, I think weapons would be a higher priority.
Fisher raised an eyebrow.
My position?
The imposter laughed.
The URT.
He shook his head.
With all the shit you've been taking from the Pegasi lately. I mean, they've practically started a war without firing a shot. How many worlds they occupy now?
A couple.
Fisher knew the exact number, but the conversation was starting to go places he didn't want to tread. He canted his head to one side.
You ask a lot of questions.
Fake Farringer lifted his hands from the tabletop, palms out.
Hey, just being friendly. You want to just get to it? Let's get to it.
He slid a credit chip onto the table.
15
15.
each.
We discussed 12.
Shit happens.
Fake Farringer said with a shrug.
Costs go up. Security fees, transportation. You know how it is. This economy's a bitch.
I can get the units from Hammersmith for half of that.
Maybe, but they'd be shit. These are top of the line, straight from the manufacturer, never been used before.
He raised a finger.
And untraceable. I'd be willing to bet Hammersmith can't beat that.
Fisher considered the man, giving the impression he was mulling the deal over. As price went, $15 million for military-grade BTRs was a stellar deal. especially when accounting for the manpower and logistics in transporting a yacht-sized piece of equipment through system without being detected. He reminded himself to check the transit logs for the last month. Chances were the freighter would be there.
Well,
Fake Farringer asked.
do we have a deal? And that's where we have to cut it off for tonight because we're out of time. I want to know. I want to know if they had a deal or not.
Damn, honestly, that was excellent, Josh. I really enjoyed that. In fact, I kind of forgot myself, and I'm very good. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It sucked. It's garbage. All right,
It's garbage.
I wouldn't wipe my butt with it. It was really good. Thank you very much for sharing that with us.
Oh yeah, thanks for reading it. I actually had a good time. I don't know that I've ever read Fisher like that before, so that was kind of fun.
That was awesome. And so that's Edge of Valor, right?
Yes, Edge of Valor.
So if you're wanting to check out Edge of Valor, we will have a link below, which is going to be our Amazon Associates link. We get $1 million every time you purchase one. It really helps out
$1 million.
$1 million. $1 trillion. We really appreciate it. So, and it will be supporting both us and Josh Hayes. Josh, we want to thank you so much for being on the air with us today. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks for the invite. It was really fun. Hopefully I can come back on again this year when I get my fantasy book out.
Yeah. Can you tell us anything about the fantasy book, or is it top secret?
No, it's not top secret. It's basically it's set on a world that's not Earth, and there are 3 different aspects to the book. But everybody in the magic system, everybody believes that there's 2 parts to it. Because over the years they've forgotten that there was a third. And so for most of the book, there's conflict from both sides of this magic system that's actually 3. And then when the third part is revealed, that kind of changes how their life is built on the world. And so I'm going to be kind of discussing a lot about that, a lot about family and responsibility to family, that kind of thing. And then I want to bring in, I'm going to be using trolls, but not like Rock Mountain trolls, like really stupid trolls. These are like kind of, if you've ever played Warcraft, they're based on the trolls in Warcraft, where they're actually tribalistic and very intelligent. And
they're like Jamaican in World of Warcraft.
Yeah. And they're not like that, but they are kind of a coastal wetland race, and that they're going to be play really heavily in the lore of the book too. So it's going to be fun, I think.
Thanks for sharing that with us. Andy, anything else you want to talk about?
Okay.
That's it?
No, that's it for tonight.
Awesome. And next week, do you know who we have, or is it a mystery?
Yes, we have Russell Nolte, I think.
Russell
is how
Crowe.
you pronounce
all right.
His last name.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited.
And then after the week after that, we've got Josh's potentially better half, Scott Moon on. We'll see. We'll see who's the better half of this relationship.
You get the hair with me this week, and then 2 weeks you get the baldness with Scott.
Oh my God, that's great.
Yeah, and that deep rumbling voice that he's got.
Oh yeah.
Deep rumbling voice. Awesome. Well, that is it for this podcast episode of the Fantasy Fiends. We really appreciate you coming and hanging out with us today, and we look forward to seeing you guys Thursday, and I will be here. So peace.
Have a good night.
See ya. Thanks.